Thank you, Pierre, and thank you all.
Commissioner, please.
Merci, Mario.
Thank you, Mario. I think that the Eurogroup showed yesterday that it is facing up to the challenges of the future so that our economies are stronger and are more resilient in the face of future shocks. In that spirit, we discussed trends in competitiveness and imbalances in the euro area. We have to remain very vigilant here in order to avoid a repetition of the errors of the past which cost us so dear. We need to revive growth, productivity and investment. We need to work hand in hand with national policies, European national policies. Need to work hand in hand, and we have to face up to the persistent imbalances between surplus and deficit countries. Those with deficits need to continue to consolidate the public finances, whereas those with budget surpluses can invest more for their own benefit and to boost growth in the euro area. I also underscored the importance of being attentive to new challenges, such as technological change and trade tensions. The impact of these developments may vary from one member state to another, but all this has considerable repercussions for growth and convergence in the euro area, and potentially we have to be vigilant, bearing in mind the financial shock of 10 years ago. So let's be creatively vigilant, if I might say so. We also had a good debate about the economic situation in Europe and its implications for the fiscal stance. As Mario said, growth is continuing and employment is reaching record levels. Fine. But it's clear that there's a marked slowdown in economic activity, in particular in industry, but also now in services. And this in a context of downside risks, increasing downside risks. So it's legitimate to discuss this, and it's timely because member states are finalising their draft budget plans, which the Commission should receive in a few days' time, on the 15th of October, or by the 15th of October. This will be my last task, which will be examining these plans. Under the Juncker Commission, the van der Leyen Commission will continue looking at these, and budgetary rules will continue to apply in the same way, and I can't anticipate the outcome. I agree fully with Mario. We do need to avoid pro-cyclical fiscal decisions. We do need to encourage investment and adaptation to climate change, and we have to be prudent where public debt is especially high. We need to show fiscal prudence here, and this is a manifestation of the intelligent application of the pact which I've been promoting. We want to move down from 6% to 0.8% budget deficits on average. Secondly, we prefer flexibility to penalties, and thirdly, we want sound public finances, which is not incompatible with strong support for growth.
10th post-programme surveillance report for Portugal. Let me say that in the 5 years I've been in this position as Commissioner, Portugal has been one of the clearest economic success stories I've been able to observe, staging a strong recovery in growth and employment and an impressive improvement in public finances. The main messages of our report are the following. First, despite some moderation, economic growth has remained solid and become more broad-based, supported by strong, even if slowing, job creation. Second, the headline budget deficit is projected to decrease further to 0.4% in 2019 and 0.1% of GDP in 2020, and public debt is set to retain a downward path. And third, Portugal's banks have made further significant progress in reducing NPLs. These positive developments underpin also the very good economic and financial situation of Portugal. The short-term economic outlook remains broadly favourable, in spite of risk related to the external environment having increased. Going forward, sustained effort to address impediments to investment, increasing productivity and further improving the business environment remain key for strengthening growth and competitiveness. But all in all, it's clearly a very good post-programme report. As you know, and as was said by Mario, the most time-consuming discussion yesterday was on the budgetary instrument for competitiveness and convergence, the famous BIC. An agreement was reached, and it was reached at 5 minutes to midnight, which means our discussions have become markedly more efficient over the past few months. And if I refer to the beginning of my experience at the Eurogroup, much more efficient. I want to thank and congratulate Mario for steering these particularly difficult discussions to a successful conclusion with patience and determination. And I know what a complex exercise this was. The Commission supports this compromise and stands ready to facilitate the next phase of this work, including on the relevant legal text to ensure that the final decisions on the BIC can be taken in the context of the multi-annual financial framework negotiation, the MFF, which should be concluded by December. The BIC, let's be clear, is not, in my mind, the last step in this long journey towards the euro area budget I've always believed is needed. I consider it to be a significant first step and not only a symbolic one. I believe this instrument will be a useful addition to our financial toolbox, supporting the investment and reform efforts that we all need to be pursued. I hope that the ongoing discussions in the MFF framework and in parallel of a supplementary intergovernmental agreement will deliver the resources needed to enable the BIC to have a meaningful impact for our citizens. But again, that's not the end of the road, and there is plenty of work in this area as well on the euro area budget, on governance and on democratic control for the time being. Je voudrais ajouter un dernier mot.
Let me just add one last brief word, a farewell. Not definitive, I hope. It's not, I think, the last time I will have the pleasure of seeing you here, and I hope the other way around too. I attended my first Eurogroup in June 2012 when I was the finance minister of France. And aside from a few months between two different jobs, I have taken part in all the meetings until the very last one when I had a personal problem which prevented me from coming. But I have attended over 80 Eurogroup meetings, some of which went on for quite some time. Others were on the short side. Some were very productive, such as our meeting yesterday. Others rather more frustrating. Some were perhaps even on the boring side. Others were dramatically exciting. During my first years here, our focus was primarily on developing new programs, and we were constantly under fire, as it were, from the media, from investors, from citizens. And let's not forget, in 2012, as in 2015, in summer, we were very close to the cliff edge, and we only just managed to avoid Brexit. And I'm very happy and proud to have been part of that process. But as I was saying, today, thankfully, we can focus on long-term challenges such as competitiveness, convergence, the budget. I think the Eurogroup, under the three presidents, each with their own style and with their own qualities and strong points, I think the Eurogroup has grown in strength and will continue to do so. Of course, not every aspect of my participation has necessarily been fulfilled in full. That's never the case in politics. Sometimes we might perhaps have been more ambitious in terms of deepening the Eurozone. That remains a source of, well, perhaps not disappointment, but perhaps hope for the future. We might have been able to come to decisions more quickly and more democratically than we did. But it's not a question of looking back to the past. We know what has been achieved, what could be achieved. I think on the whole we can be very proud of what the Eurogroup has achieved collectively. And just a last word to address to you journalists. I don't know if you'll miss me, but I will miss you. and I just want to address my remarks to the journalists of one particular country, Italy. Please forgive me for the other journalists. Everywhere I go in the world, I am pursued by Italian journalists. Wherever I go, there's always an Italian journalist who shows up and asks me, what do you think of Italy? What do you think of La Manovra? Whichever government happens to be in office. As a joke in French, when you're a former minister and you get in the back of the car and it doesn't actually take off with you at the back. So at some stage, when I come out of a meeting, well, perhaps there will no longer be an Italian journalist showing up asking me about our reaction to developments in Italy. I haven't entirely finished with Italy. It's a country I'm very, very attached to. In any case, I wish you good luck for the future, and I would just like to say once again how much I've enjoyed our exchanges over many years, and I will